can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. Here are the facts. The United States Civil War began in 1861 with the attack on Fort Sumter and lasted until 1865. Over 600,000 died in one of the bloodiest conflicts in U.S. history. The consequences of this war left a lasting mark on the nation, and over 150 years later, the war remains vivid in the American consciousness. Historians have analyzed the war from numerous perspectives, including its effects on the country's legal system, the assassination of President Lincoln, the role of chattel slavery, and more. But, according to some people, we should be more concerned about analyzing the present. Some believe the United States is gearing up for a second civil war. Here's where it gets crazy. Over the summer of 2012, several lawmakers, media personalities, and judges like Lubbock, Texas's Tom Head made the news when they predicted armed revolts against the Obama administration. These statements have largely been treated as hyperbole. After all, modern media pundits are embarrassingly fond of calling almost any domestic debate a war. The war on Christmas, for example, or the war on women. Yet the theorists predicting a new civil war are not talking about varying opinions on discrimination or saying happy holidays. They're talking about detainment camps on U.S. soil, the extinction of privacy, and, ultimately, a government that will wage war against its own people. And while predictions of a civil war are prominent today, they're far from new. Consider the controversy over the Reagan-era readiness exercise in 1984. Rex 84 was part of a larger project known as Operation Garden Plot, a Department of Defense plan for combating wide-scale civil disturbance. Theorists claim that under Rex 84, numerous detention centers were built in semi-secret locations throughout the United States. Additionally, some theorists claim this was proof that the U.S. was, in fact, preparing to imprison a great deal of its citizens. This theory is closely related to the idea that the United Nations plans to conquer the United States. The UN theory, popular in right-wing conspiracy circles, claims that a shadowy cabal is eroding personal privacy, the right to own firearms, and other aspects of U.S. citizenship with the ultimate goal of abolishing U.S. sovereignty. Operation Garden Plot is not itself a conspiracy theory, and it is true that the U.S. government has kept lists of dissidents. From 1967 to 1971, for example, the FBI kept the Administrative Index, or ADEX list. This list tracked citizens who could be considered a threat to national security. Preparing for a hypothetical unrest and keeping lists of suspicious characters isn't the same as preparing to wage an imminent civil war. But these aren't the only concerns. The Department of Homeland Security recently purchased 450 million rounds of ammunition, and they're not the only department shopping for bullets. The Social Security Administration has requested quotes for 174,000 rounds of hollow point ammo. Additionally, citizens from across the political spectrum are concerned about the annually reviewed National Defense Authorization Act. Along with similar legislation, the NDAA arguably paves a legal route to indefinite detention for citizens who meet certain conditions. While the outlandish calls for armed revolt are probably just political posturing, it is absolutely true that the U.S. government has contingency plans in place for domestic unrest, whether due to a natural disaster, an influx of immigrants, or widespread rebellion. For supporters of these actions, the U.S. is simply taking steps to plan ahead. But for what? According to conspiracy theorists, that's something the government doesn't want you to know.
Now, this is Washington Times Today. Pentagon studying protesters to prep for mass civil breakdown. They are studying how social movement mobilizes, what starts it in the first place, and their aim is to find when is the tipping point of civil uprisings.